When I heard my daughter's voice crack on the other end of that phone call, everything I thought I knew about my life shattered in an instant. Daddy, my back hurts. Those 4 words destroyed me more completely than any business failure ever could. Because when I ran home through that storm and burst through the door, I saw something that would haunt me forever. My 8-year-old Emma, trembling and exhausted, holding her baby brother in arms that were never meant to carry such weight. But let me go back to the beginning, because what happened next was even worse than I could have imagined. My name is Richard Morrison, and 3 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. Corner office on the 32nd floor of downtown Chicago. 7-figure income, a beautiful wife, 2 healthy kids, and a house in Lincoln Park that cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. I wore custom suits, drove a Tesla, and closed deals that made headlines in the Wall Street Journal. Success, I told myself every morning in the mirror, looks exactly like this. The boardroom was packed that Tuesday afternoon. November rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows as I presented quarterly projections to a room full of investors. My phone buzzed on the mahogany table. Face down, silent mode. I ignored it. This pitch was worth $12 million. Nothing interrupted a pitch like this. It buzzed again and again. My partner, Stevens, shot me a look. I kept talking, gesturing at the presentation screen, walking them through the numbers that would make us all richer. The phone wouldn't stop. Buzz. Buzz. Excuse me, I finally said, flashing my practice smile. The one that cost $5,000 in dental work. I flipped the phone over. Emma, mobile. My daughter never called me. Not during school hours. Not ever, really. Victoria handled all that. My chest tightened as I swiped to answer. Daddy? Her voice was so small, so far away. Static crackled on the line. Emma? Sweetheart, I'm in a meeting. Is Mom? Daddy, my back hurts. Each word came out broken, like she was trying not to cry. I can't. Noah is heavy, and I dropped. The line went dead. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to silence while 12 pairs of eyes watched me. The rain seemed louder suddenly, pounding against the glass like fists demanding to be let in. Richard? Stevens said. You all right? I wasn't all right. Every instinct I'd buried under years of conference calls and networking dinners suddenly screamed at me to move. Now, I have to go. I grabbed my jacket, already heading for the door. We're not finished. I have to go. I didn't wait for a response. Didn't apologize, didn't explain. I just ran. The elevator took forever. My hands shook as I jabbed the lobby button over and over, like that would make it faster. Emma's voice echoed in my head. My back hurts. Noah is heavy. What did that mean? Where was Victoria? Why was Emma calling me instead of her mother? I burst onto the street into sheets of freezing rain. My car was in the garage 2 blocks away. I ran, my leather shoes slipping on wet pavement, my $500 suit soaking through. People stared. I didn't care. The only thing in my head was that broken little voice and the terror underneath it. Traffic was a nightmare. I laid on the horn, weaving between cars, running a red light that nearly got me killed. A cab driver screamed at me. I kept going. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up with the rain. Everything was a blur of gray and water and the pounding of my heart that felt like it might explode. 20 minutes. It took me 20 minutes to get home. 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. I didn't bother closing the car door. I sprinted up the walkway to our perfect house, with its perfect landscaping and its perfect facade that suddenly felt like a lie. The front door was unlocked. I shoved it open so hard it slammed against the wall. Emma! The living room was empty, toys scattered across the floor. Noah's favorite blanket crumpled by the couch. Rain drummed on the roof, filling the silence. Emma! I ran toward the kitchen. And that's when I saw it. The scene that would replay in my nightmares for months to come. Broken glasses littered the tile floor, glittering like diamonds in a pool of spilled milk. The chair from the breakfast nook lay on its side. And in the middle of it all stood my daughter, my tiny 8-year-old daughter, holding her 3-year-old brother against her chest. Her arms trembled with his weight. Her school uniform was soaked with milk and tears. Her face was pale, streaked with crying, and her eyes, God, her eyes looked ancient. She saw me and her whole body sagged with relief. Daddy! Noah whimpered against her shoulder, his chubby hands tangled in her blonde hair. She tried to adjust her grip on him and winced, a sharp intake of breath that cut through me like a knife. I was across the room in 2 steps, lifting Noah out of her arms, setting him down gently. Then I knelt in front of Emma, my hands on her shoulders, and felt how badly she was shaking. She was so light, too light, like she'd been hollowed out. Are you hurt? My voice came out rough, barely controlled. Did you fall? I'm sorry. She was crying now. Real crying. The kind kids do when they've been holding it in too long. I just wanted to clean up before Mom got home. I reached for the glasses on the top shelf, and they fell and Noah started crying, and I tried to pick him up. But he's so heavy in my back, she sobbed, words tumbling out faster and faster. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make a mess. Please don't be mad. I'm not mad. I pulled her against me, careful, so careful. Her body felt fragile, like she might break. I'm not mad, baby. I'm here now. You're safe. But even as I said it, questions screamed through my mind. Why was she trying to reach the top shelf? Where was Victoria? Why was Emma taking care of Noah? Why did my 8-year-old daughter sound terrified of her own mother being angry? I looked around the kitchen with new eyes. Dishes in the sink, still wet from being washed. The counter wiped clean. Noah's lunch containers from daycare sitting by the sink, rinsed and ready to be packed for tomorrow. All things Victoria should have done. All things an 8-year-old child shouldn't have to think about. Where's Mom? I asked, quietly. Emma's crying quieted to hiccups. She pulled back, wiping her nose on her sleeve. She left this morning. She said she had an appointment, and Daddy would be home soon. But you weren't. And Noah was hungry, and I tried to make him lunch. But this morning, Victoria left this morning. It was now 4 in the afternoon. 7 hours. 7 hours of my daughter trying to take care of everything alone. Something cold and sharp settled in my chest. Something that felt like the beginning of understanding and the end of ignorance. I called 911. The operator asked questions. I barely heard. Yes, my daughter is in pain. No, she didn't fall. I don't know, she says her back hurts. Please just send someone. The paramedics arrived within 10 minutes. They examined Emma gently while Noah clung to my leg, confused and scared. I watched them check her spine, her shoulders, ask her questions in soft voices. Can you lift your arms? Does this hurt? How long have you been carrying your brother? Muscle strain, the older paramedic said, making notes on her tablet. Overexertion. Her back is severely tense, probably from carrying weight she's not built to handle. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. How often does she lift her brother? I don't know. The paramedic's eyes said everything her mouth didn't. She gave Emma a children's pain reliever and showed me some gentle stretches. She needs rest. No heavy lifting. And, she hesitated. Maybe keep an eye on why an 8-year-old is doing so much heavy lifting in the first place. After they left, I carried Emma to her room. She fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted beyond measure. Noah was already asleep in my arms, his head heavy on my shoulder. I put him in his crib, covered him with his favorite blanket, and stood there in the dim light of his nightlight, watching him breathe. My children. My beautiful, innocent children. What had I been missing? I tried Victoria's phone. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. On the 3rd try, I didn't bother leaving a message. I just hung up and stood in the hallway of my $1,000,000 house, listening to the rain that wouldn't stop falling, and felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. In our bedroom, everything was perfectly in place. The bed made with hospital corners, Victoria's vanity organized like a department store display. And on top of her jewelry box, a small note in her precise handwriting. Out with Miranda. Spa day. Don't wait up. Don't wait up. I crumpled the note in my fist and threw it across the room. It was past midnight when I finally stopped pacing. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses down on you until you can't breathe. I went to my office, opened my laptop, and stared at the screen for a long time before I finally clicked on the icon I never thought I'd use, the home security system. We'd installed cameras throughout the house 2 years ago after a break-in scare in the neighborhood. Victoria said it made her feel safe when I traveled for business. I'd never actually looked at the footage. Never needed to. I needed to now. I started with today's recording and worked backward. The timestamp read 7:42 a.m. Victoria in the kitchen, coffee cup in hand, checking her phone. Emma appeared, already dressed in her school uniform, making herself a bowl of cereal. Victoria didn't look up from her phone. At 7:55, Victoria grabbed her purse and left. Just walked out. Emma was still eating breakfast. Noah was still asleep upstairs. Victoria didn't say goodbye, didn't check on Noah, just left. I watched Emma finish her breakfast, rinse her bowl, then go upstairs. The upstairs hallway camera caught her waking Noah, changing his diaper, getting him dressed. She moved with the efficiency of someone who'd done this routine 1,000 times. 1,000 times. I clicked back further. Yesterday, the day before, last week, every single day, the same routine. Emma waking up, making breakfast, taking care of Noah, washing dishes, wiping counters, picking up toys. Victoria floating through scenes like a ghost, always on her phone, always on her way somewhere else. One video made my blood run cold. Emma, maybe 6 years old in this footage, standing on a chair trying to reach something on a high shelf. Victoria walking past without looking. Emma losing her balance, falling, hitting the floor hard. She lay there crying for a full minute before picking herself up, wiping her eyes, and climbing right back on that chair. Victoria never came back into frame. I watched hours of footage. Watched my daughter grow up in fast forward. Watched her take on responsibilities no child should bear. Watched her fall and get up. Fall and get up. Fall and get up. Always alone. Always trying so hard to do everything right. And where was I in all these videos? Nowhere. At the office. At dinner meetings. At conferences. Absent. I'd built an empire and lost my family in the process. And I'd been too blind to see it happening. When the sun came up, I was still at my desk, still watching. My eyes burned. My throat was raw. But I couldn't stop. Because in every frame I saw the same thing. A little girl whose childhood had been stolen. And I'd let it happen. The next morning started differently. I woke up on the couch in my office, fully dressed, laptop still open on the coffee table. My neck ached from the awkward position. For a moment, I couldn't remember why I'd slept there. Then it all came rushing back. Emma. The phone call. The broken glasses. The videos. I got up and went to the kitchen, moving quietly through the house. It was barely 6 a.m. Surely the kids were still asleep. Surely I had time to figure out what to say, what to do, how to fix this mess I'd only just discovered. But when I reached the kitchen, Emma was already there. Barefoot, still in her pajamas, her blonde hair tangled from sleep. She stood on her tiptoes at the counter trying to reach the oatmeal on the second shelf. Her arms stretched up, and even from the doorway, I could see her wince. Emma! She spun around, startled, nearly dropping the container she'd just grabbed. Daddy! I didn't know you were home. I thought. She looked confused, like she couldn't quite process my presence in the kitchen at this hour. Do you want breakfast? I can make eggs if... No. I walked over, gently took the oatmeal from her hands, and set it on the counter. I'll make breakfast. You should rest. You're back. It's okay. I can do it. She reached for the oatmeal again, but I blocked her, crouching down to her eye level. Emma, sweetheart, You don't have to do this. But Mom says I need to be independent. She says I'm old enough. Your mother is wrong. The words came out harder than I intended. Emma's eyes went wide, like I'd said something forbidden. Maybe I had. In this house, we didn't contradict Victoria. We didn't question her rules. We just followed along. And I'd never stopped to ask why. You're 8 years old, I said more gently. You should be playing with friends, not making breakfast for everyone. You should be worried about homework and cartoons, not whether the dishes are clean. But someone has to do it. Her voice was so small. And Mom says she's busy and you're always at work. And Noah needs someone, and I'm the only. No. I took her hands in mine. They were so tiny. Cold. You're not the only one. You were never supposed to be the only one. That's what parents are for. That's what I'm for. She looked at me like she didn't believe me, like she'd heard this promise before and seen it broken. It broke my heart. Go sit down, I said. I'm making breakfast. Real breakfast. And you're going to eat it and rest and not worry about a single thing. Okay? She hesitated, then nodded slowly, and climbed onto one of the kitchen chairs. She sat there watching me with those two old eyes, as I fumbled through making oatmeal and toast. I burned the toast. The oatmeal came out lumpy, but Emma ate every bite, and even smiled a little, and that felt like more of an accomplishment than any business deal I'd ever closed. Noah woke up crying at 7. Before Emma could move, I was already heading upstairs. I changed his diaper, got him dressed in clothes I had to search 3 drawers to find, and carried him down to the kitchen, where Emma had already washed her bowl and was reaching for Noah's high chair. I've got it, I said. But I know. I set Noah in his chair and buckled him in. But not today. Today I'm doing it. I fed Noah applesauce and made him giggle by making airplane noises with the spoon. Emma watched from her chair, her expression somewhere between confusion and hope. When Noah's face was thoroughly covered in applesauce, I wiped him clean and tickled his belly until he shrieked with laughter. That's when I noticed Emma was smiling. Really smiling. Not the tired, forced smile I'd seen in those videos. A real, genuine, 8-year-old smile. You're silly, Daddy, she said. Maybe, I replied. But silly is better than serious all the time. After breakfast, I told Emma to get ready for school while I got Noah ready for daycare. She moved slowly, clearly still sore. I made a mental note to take her to a real doctor. Not just the paramedics. She needed to be properly checked, and I needed to know how much damage had been done. We left the house at 8:15. I drove them both. Emma in the back seat next to Noah's car seat. The rain had stopped overnight, but the streets were still wet. Reflecting the gray November sky, Emma sat quietly, holding her backpack on her lap, watching the familiar route like she was seeing it for the first time. At Noah's daycare, the woman at the front desk looked surprised to see me. Mr. Morrison, we don't usually see you at drop-off. That's changing, I said, signing Noah in. The woman's eyebrows rose, but she didn't comment. I kissed Noah goodbye and promised I'd be there at pickup. He waved happily, already distracted by the toys in the play area. Emma's school was 10 minutes away. I pulled up to the drop-off lane and put the car in park, instead of just slowing down like I used to do on the rare occasions I drove her. Daddy? Emma unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't move to get out. Are you really going to pick us up today? Yes. But what about work? Work can wait. She bit her lip, and I could see her trying to decide whether to believe me. Finally, she nodded and opened the door. Before she could leave, I called her name. Emma? She turned back. I love you and I'm sorry. She blinked, confused. Sorry for what? For everything. For not seeing, for not being there, for letting you carry weight that was never yours to carry. For not saying that enough, I finally said. She smiled, small but real, and said, I love you too, Daddy. Then she was gone. running toward the school entrance with her too heavy backpack bouncing against her sore back. I sat there and watched until she disappeared inside, and then I sat there longer, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. I called the office. Told Stevens I was taking a few days off. Family emergency. "Everything okay?" he asked. "No, but it will be." I hung up before he could ask questions. I didn't know how to answer. At home, the emptiness was oppressive. No Victoria. No kids. Just me in a house that suddenly felt like a museum of my failures. I wandered through rooms I barely recognized, seeing them with fresh eyes. Noah's room, cluttered with toys, but also with signs of Emma's presence. His clothes folded on the dresser, his shoes lined up neatly by the door. Emma's room painfully neat. Her bed made with precision that no 8-year-old should possess. On her desk, I found a school planner. I opened it, expecting to see doodles and messy handwriting. Instead, I found careful notes in the margins. Remember Noah's lunch. Library books, due Thursday. Mom's spa appointment. Be quiet. Laundry day. Start after school. She'd turned her school planner into a household management system. I sat on her bed and cried for the first time in 15 years. My phone rang around noon. Victoria, finally calling back. I stared at her name on the screen, feeling nothing but cold anger. "Where are you?" I answered. "At Miranda's. I told you I was spending the night." "Honestly, Richard, you never listen. Emma called me yesterday. From home. She was hurt." Silence. Then, "She's fine. She's dramatic sometimes. All kids are." She was holding Noah. Her back hurt from carrying him. She was trying to clean up broken glass. Alone. "Where were you?" "I had an appointment." Victoria's voice took on that defensive edge. I knew too well. "I told her I'd be gone for a few hours. She's perfectly capable. She's 8 years old." "Don't yell at me. You're never here anyway. Someone has to teach her responsibility." "Responsibility?" "Victoria. She's running the household. She's taking care of Noah, doing laundry, cooking meals. What the hell is wrong with you?" "Nothing is wrong with me. You're the one who's never around. You leave everything to me, and then you get mad when I need a break." "I deserve a life too, Richard. I deserve to feel like more than just a mother." "Then, hire help. We have the money. Hire a nanny, a housekeeper. Someone. Don't put it all on a child." "We had help, Margaret. But she was useless, always undermining me, spoiling the kids. Or maybe she saw what you were doing to Emma and tried to stop it." Another silence. Colder than the first. When Victoria spoke again, her voice was ice. "You don't know anything about what happens in this house. You're a ghost, Richard. You leave at 6 a.m. and come home at midnight. You miss birthdays and school plays and bedtime stories. Don't you dare lecture me about parenting when you're barely a parent yourself." She was right. God help me. She was right. I had been absent. I had left everything to her. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. That didn't make it okay to burden our daughter with adult responsibilities while she went to spas and lunches with friends. "I'm going to be home more," I said quietly. "I'm going to be present. And you're going to stop treating Emma like household staff. She's our daughter, not our maid. You can't just decide to change everything because of one phone call. Watch me." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I'd never spoken to Victoria like that. In our marriage, she made the decisions about the house and kids, and I made the money. That was the arrangement. That was how it worked. But I was done with arrangements that hurt my children. I spent the rest of the day learning how to do things I should have known years ago. How to work our washing machine. How to sort colors from whites. How to fold tiny shirts and tinier pants. I cleaned the kitchen, scrubbing until the counters gleamed. I vacuumed. I picked up toys. Every task felt like penance. At 3 o'clock, I left to pick up the kids. I was early, sitting in the school parking lot, watching parents and nannies arrive. I'd never done this before. Never been part of this routine. A few other fathers were scattered among the sea of mothers, but not many. I wondered if they felt as out of place as I did, or if they'd been doing this all along and I was the only fool who'd missed his children growing up. Emma emerged from the building at 3:20, scanning the parking lot with that look kids get when they're trying not to hope too hard. When she saw my car, her whole face lit up. She ran over and climbed in, breathless and smiling. "You came!" I said I would. "I know, but," she trailed off, buckling her seatbelt. "You came." We picked up Noah from daycare. He squealed when he saw me, reaching out with applesauce sticky hands. The daycare worker smiled and said, "He's been talking about Daddy all day." My throat tightened. "He has?" "Oh yes. Daddy funny. Daddy airplane. You must have had quite the morning together." "Yeah," I managed. "We did." On the drive home, Emma told me about her day. Her friend Sarah had shared crayons with her. They'd had music class and sung a song about autumn. She'd gotten an A on her spelling test. Normal, everyday kid things that I'd never heard about because I'd never bothered to ask. I listened to every word like it was the most important business presentation I'd ever heard. At home, I made dinner. Well, I tried. I burned the chicken and overcooked the vegetables, and the rice came out mushy. But Emma and Noah ate it anyway. And Emma said, "It's good, Daddy," even though we both knew it wasn't. After dinner, I gave Noah a bath. I got more water on myself than on him, but he laughed the whole time, splashing and playing with his rubber ducks. I wrapped him in a towel and carried him to his room, dressed him in his pajamas, and read him 3 picture books. By the third one, his eyes were drooping. I laid him in his crib, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Daddy loves you." He was asleep before I reached the door. Emma was in her room, doing homework. I knocked softly, and she looked up, pencil in hand. "Need help?" I asked. "It's just math. I'm okay." I sat on the edge of her bed anyway. "I used to be pretty good at math. Try me." She showed me her worksheet, multiplication problems. She was doing fine on her own, but I helped her check her work, and we talked through the ones she wasn't sure about. It was simple, easy, and I couldn't believe I'd never done this before. When her homework was done, I said bath time. "I can do it myself." "I know you can, but tonight, let me help." She hesitated, then nodded. While she bathed, I sat on the bathroom floor outside the tub, and we talked about school, about her friends, about nothing and everything. She told me about Sarah and the crayons, about how she liked music class but not gym class because she wasn't good at dodgeball. She told me she wanted to learn piano someday, and that she loved the color purple but her favorite shirt was actually blue. I memorized every word. This was my daughter. This was who she was when she wasn't busy carrying the weight of a household on her small shoulders. This was who she should get to be all the time. After her bath, I braided her hair. I'd never braided hair before. It came out crooked and lumpy, but Emma didn't complain. She looked in the mirror and smiled. "It's perfect, Daddy." It wasn't, but her saying so made it feel like maybe I could learn to get this right. I tucked her into bed, and she looked up at me with those impossibly blue eyes. "Daddy, will you be here tomorrow?" "Yes." "And the day after?" "Yes." "What about work?" I brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "You and Noah are more important than work." I should have figured that out a long time ago, but I get it now. I promise. She was quiet for a moment, and then asked the question that gutted me. "Are you going to go away again?" "No, baby. I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, reached up, and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Emma. More than you'll ever know." I turned off her light and stood in the doorway, watching her until her breathing evened out and she fell asleep. Then I went downstairs and sat in the living room in the dark, and I made a decision. Tomorrow, I was calling Margaret. I was going to hear everything she had to say about what had been happening in my house while I was building my empire. And then I was going to figure out how to fix it. How to fix everything. Because Emma had asked if I was going to go away again. And the fact that she had to ask meant I'd already failed her more times than I could count. But failure didn't have to be permanent. I could change. I could be better. I could be the father my children deserve. Starting now. Starting tonight. Starting with the promise I'd just made to a little girl who'd been forced to grow up too fast. I wasn't going anywhere. The next morning, I called Margaret before the kids woke up. The phone rang 4 times before a cautious voice answered. Hello? Margaret, this is Richard Morrison. I need to talk to you about Emma. Silence. Then a sigh. I was wondering when you'd call. How long? I asked. How long has Victoria been doing this to her? Since I started working for you 3 years ago. Maybe longer. I tried to say something, Mr. Morrison. I really did. But Mrs. Morrison said it wasn't my place, and when I kept pushing, she let me go. Tell me everything. And she did. Margaret told me about how Victoria would leave Emma alone with Noah for hours, sometimes the whole day. How she'd make Emma clean rooms that didn't need cleaning, just to keep her busy. How she'd criticize everything Emma did. The dishes weren't clean enough. The floor wasn't spotless enough. Noah's clothes weren't folded the right way. Nothing was ever good enough. She treated that little girl like an employee, Margaret said, her voice shaking with old anger. Like someone she could boss around. And Emma just took it. Never complained. Never cried where anyone could see. She just tried harder and harder to make her mother happy. Why didn't you tell me? I tried? I left you 3 voicemails. You never called back. The accusation in her words hit like a punch. She was right. I'd been so focused on work that I'd probably deleted those messages without listening. Or maybe I'd told myself I'd deal with it later and then forgot. Either way, I'd failed. Again. I'm sorry, I said. I should have listened. I should have paid attention. But I'm paying attention now. If you're willing, I'd like you to come back. Not as staff, as help. Someone who can be here when I can't. Someone who actually cares about my kids. And Mrs. Morrison? Let me worry about Victoria. Margaret agreed to come back. We arranged for her to start in a few days, after I'd had time to sort things out with Victoria. But first, I had other calls to make. I called Emma's school and asked to speak with Mrs. Henderson. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and concerned. Mr. Morrison, I'm glad you called. I've been worried about Emma. Tell me what you've seen. Mrs. Henderson described a child who was always tired, who sometimes fell asleep during quiet reading time, who brought lunches that looked like they'd been packed by another child, crackers and random snacks instead of proper meals. A child who flinched when she made mistakes, like she expected punishment. A child who was too serious, too careful, too much like a little adult, and not enough like an 8-year-old. She's a sweet girl, Mrs. Henderson said. But she seems burdened. I've taught for 20 years and I know what it looks like when a child is carrying too much. It's going to change, I told her. I'm going to make sure it changes. I hope so, Mr. Morrison. Emma deserves to be a kid. After I hung up, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I pulled up our bank statements and credit card records. Something I rarely looked at because Victoria managed the household accounts. What I found made my stomach turn. Spa treatments, salon appointments, designer clothes, expensive lunches, jewelry. In the past 6 months alone, Victoria had spent over $60,000 on herself. $60,000 while our daughter wore shoes that were too small and carried a backpack with a broken strap because it still worked fine. I thought about Emma trying to make Noah's lunch with whatever she could reach in the pantry. I thought about her standing on chairs to reach high shelves because no one had thought to put things within her reach. I thought about her tiny hands washing dishes in water that was probably too hot, folding laundry that was probably too heavy, doing everything she could to keep a house running while her mother got another manicure. The anger that had been simmering in my chest since that phone call erupted into something white-hot and sharp. I heard the front door open around 2 in the afternoon. Victoria, finally coming home. I met her in the foyer. She looked perfect, as always. Hair freshly highlighted, new outfit, new shoes. She smiled when she saw me. That practice smile she used at parties. Richard, you're home. How unusual. We need to talk. Her smile faltered. About what? About Emma. About what you've been doing to her. The smile disappeared entirely. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. I pulled out my phone and showed her the bank statements. $60,000 in 6 months. On yourself. While our daughter is working like a servant in her own home. Victoria's jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. I'm teaching her responsibility. You're abusing her. The word hung in the air between us. Sharp and undeniable. You've turned our 8-year-old into your personal assistant. She's exhausted, Victoria. She's hurt. She's terrified of making you angry. That's not parenting. That's abuse. How dare you? I watched the security footage. All of it. I saw everything you've done. Everything you haven't done. I talked to Margaret. I talked to Emma's teacher. I know exactly what's been happening in this house while I was at work. And it ends now. Victoria's face flushed red. You think you can just come in here and change everything? You're never here, Richard. You have no idea what it's like day after day, being stuck with 2 kids while you get to have a life. Then, hire help. Get a nanny. Join a book club. Do whatever you need to do to feel fulfilled. But don't take it out on our daughter. She's fine. You're making this into some big tragedy when she's perfectly. She called me crying because her back hurt from carrying Noah. She's 8 years old and her back hurts. Does that sound fine to you? Victoria looked away. And for the first time, I saw something like shame flicker across her face. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by defiance. You can't tell me how to raise my children. There are children. And yes, I can. Because you're not raising them. You're using one of them and ignoring the other. That stops today. And what are you going to do about it? You'll be back at the office in a week, chasing your next big deal, and everything will go back to normal. No, I said, quietly. It won't. Because I'm not going back. Not like before. I'm taking a leave of absence. I'm going to be here, with my kids, being the father I should have been all along. Victoria laughed, but it sounded hollow. You can't be serious. Your career means nothing if my children grow up broken. I've been chasing success and missed what actually matters. I'm done with that. I'm done with you hurting Emma. I never hurt her. You did. You are. And if you can't see that, if you can't change, then you need to leave. Victoria stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're kicking me out? I'm giving you a choice. Stay and be a real mother, or leave and let us heal without you. She grabbed her purse off the table, her hands shaking with fury. You don't get to do this. You don't get to play hero after years of being absent. You're just as guilty as I am. You're right. I am, but I'm trying to fix it. The question is, are you? Victoria didn't answer. She turned and walked to the stairs, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood. I heard her in our bedroom opening drawers, slamming closet doors. 20 minutes later she came back down with a suitcase. I'll be at Miranda's, she said coldly. When you've come to your senses, we can talk. There's nothing to talk about unless you're ready to change. She looked at me with something like hatred, then walked out the door. It slammed behind her, and the sound echoed through the too quiet house. I stood there for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. I'd just kicked my wife out, the mother of my children. We'd been together for 12 years, married for 10, and it had come to this. But when I thought about Emma's face, about her voice on that phone call, about her tiny hands folding laundry and washing dishes, I knew I'd made the right choice. My daughter needed protection more than my marriage needed saving. I called my lawyer, told him I needed to file for separation and start documenting everything for a possible custody battle. He asked questions. I answered them mechanically, trying not to think about how my perfect life had disintegrated in less than 48 hours. When it was time to pick up the kids, I was nervous. How was I supposed to tell Emma that her mother was gone? How would she react? Would she blame herself? But when Emma got in the car and asked, "Where's Mom?" I simply said, "She's staying with a friend for a while." Oh? Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Is it because of me?" "No, sweetheart. It's because of grown-up stuff. None of this is your fault. Do you understand me? Nothing that's happened is your fault." She nodded, but I wasn't sure she believed me. We drove home in silence, picked up Noah, and went home to our new reality. That night, the house felt different. Lighter somehow, despite everything. I made dinner again, pasta this time, which was harder to mess up. Emma helped me measure the ingredients, and Noah banged a spoon on his high chair tray, like it was a drum. We ate together at the kitchen table, and I realized this was the first time in years that I'd had dinner with my family on a weeknight. After dinner, after baths and homework and stories, after I'd tucked both kids into bed, I sat in the living room and let myself feel the weight of what I'd done. I'd blown up my marriage. I'd paused my career. I'd completely upended our lives. But Emma had smiled today. Really, smiled. And Noah had laughed. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, my house felt like a home instead of a museum. I thought about that phone call. "Daddy, my back hurts." 4 words that changed everything. 4 words that woke me up from a life I'd been sleepwalking through. I'd been given a second chance. Not many people got that. I wasn't going to waste it. The next few weeks blurred together in a routine that felt both strange and right. Every morning, I woke up early and made breakfast. Every morning, Emma looked surprised to see me in the kitchen. Every morning, that surprise faded a little more. I took them to school and daycare. I picked them up. I helped with homework and made dinner and did laundry. I learned which detergent to use and how to get grass stains out of Noah's pants, and which stuffed animal Emma needed to sleep with. I learned that Emma liked her sandwiches cut diagonally, and Noah only ate bananas if they were sliced into rounds. Small things. Stupid things. Things I should have known years ago. Margaret came back the second week. She cried when she saw Emma, pulling her into a hug that lasted a long time. "My sweet girl," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I left you." "It's okay," Emma said. "You're back now." Margaret looked at me over Emma's head, and I saw forgiveness there, and gratitude. She understood what I was trying to do. With Margaret's help, things got easier. She came 3 days a week, doing the deep cleaning and meal prep that I still struggled with. But she never took over Emma's care the way Victoria had dumped it on her. She helped, but she made sure Emma was just a kid, playing, reading, being 8. I started to see changes in Emma. Small ones at first. She stopped asking permission before getting a snack. She laughed more easily. She brought home drawings from art class and hung them on the refrigerator without waiting for approval. One day, I found her building a blanket fort in the living room with Noah, and when I asked what they were doing, she said, "Playing. Is that okay?" "Of course it's okay. That's what kids are supposed to do." She smiled, and it reached her eyes for the first time since this all started. But there were hard moments too. One night, I found her in the laundry room at 10 p.m., sorting clothes. "Emma, what are you doing?" She looked up, guilty and confused. "Laundry day. I forgot to do it earlier." "Sweetheart, you don't have to do laundry. That's my job. Or Margaret's. Not yours." "But Mom always said." "Your mother was wrong." I knelt down next to her. "You're 8 years old. 8-year-olds don't do laundry. They play with friends and read books and worry about kid things." "Okay, but if I don't do it, who will?" "Me. I will. I'm your dad. Taking care of you is my job, not the other way around." She looked at me with those 2 old eyes, and I saw her trying to believe it, trying to let go of the weight she'd been carrying for so long. "Come on," I said. "It's late. Let's get you to bed." She let me lead her upstairs, but at her bedroom door, she said, "Daddy, what if Mom comes back and she's angry that I'm not helping?" My heart broke a little more. Your mom isn't coming back right now. And if she does, she's not going to be angry at you. I won't let that happen. You promise? I promise. Victoria called a few times in those first weeks. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that started angry and grew increasingly desperate. The kids asked about her occasionally, but less than I expected. Emma seemed relieved she was gone. Noah was too young to understand. He just knew that Daddy was home now, and that seemed to be enough for him. My lawyer kept me updated on the separation proceedings. Victoria wanted to fight for custody. But when he presented the evidence, the security footage, Margaret's testimony, Mrs. Henderson's concerns, her lawyer advised her to settle. We worked out an agreement. She could see the kids on supervised visits, once she completed parenting classes and therapy. Until then, they stayed with me. I thought I'd feel guilty about it, about breaking up our family. But every time I looked at Emma laughing over breakfast or Noah squealing while we played on the floor, I knew I'd made the right choice. 6 weeks after that phone call, Mrs. Henderson called me. "Mr. Morrison, I wanted to let you know that Emma seems like a different child. She's more engaged in class, she's made new friends, and she doesn't fall asleep anymore. Whatever you're doing, it's working." "I'm just being her dad," I said. "Well, keep it up. She's thriving." Thriving. That word stayed with me. Emma was thriving. Noah was happy. And me, I was learning what it meant to be present, to be there, to show up every single day, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My career didn't fall apart like I thought it might. Stevens managed things at the office, and I consulted remotely when needed. But I didn't go back to 12-hour days and weekend work. I couldn't. My priorities had shifted in a way that felt permanent. One evening, about 2 months after Victoria left, Emma came to me with a piece of paper. "We had an assignment in class today. We had to draw our family." She showed me the picture. 3 people under a tree. A tall man, a little girl, and a tiny boy. All of them were smiling. All of them were holding hands. "Where's Mom?" I asked gently. Emma shrugged. "I drew who I live with, who takes care of me." I pulled her into a hug, and she melted against me. "I love you, Emma. I'm so sorry I wasn't there before. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." "I know, Daddy. I believe you." That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table and thought about everything that had changed. I'd lost my wife. I'd paused my career. I'd had to learn how to be a parent at scratch. But I'd gained something immeasurably more valuable. I'd gained my children's trust, their happiness, their childhood. All because of 4 words on a phone call. "Daddy, my back hurts." I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. A friend from college who ran a nonprofit that supported at-risk families. We'd lost touch over the years, but I knew he'd remember me. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Richard Morrison. Is the world ending?" "Not ending. Changing. I need your advice on something." I told him about Emma, about what I'd discovered, about how many other kids might be going through the same thing, burdened with responsibilities they shouldn't have, invisible to parents who were too busy or too selfish to see what was happening. "I want to help," I said. "I want to start something, a foundation, maybe. Something that helps kids like Emma. Kids who need someone to see them and step in before it's too late." My friend was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think that's a great idea. What would you call it?" I thought about Emma's voice on the phone, about her small shoulders carrying too much weight, about how all she'd needed was someone strong enough to carry some of that weight for her. "Safe Shoulders," I said. "I'll call it the Safe Shoulders Foundation." "I love it. When do we start?" "As soon as possible." We talked for another hour, brainstorming ideas and making plans. By the time we hung up, I had pages of notes and a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. This was it. This was how I could turn the worst thing that had ever happened into something meaningful. The next morning, I told Emma about the foundation over breakfast. It's going to help kids like you, I explained. Kids who are doing too much, who need someone to step in and help them. Emma was quiet for a moment, stirring her oatmeal. Then she asked, "Will it make sure they don't have to hurt?" "Yes, sweetheart. That's exactly what it will do." She smiled. "That's good, Daddy. That's really good." The Safe Shoulders Foundation officially launched 4 months later. We started small. A website, some outreach to schools, partnerships with counseling services. But the response was overwhelming. Teachers reached out. Social workers, parents who'd noticed something wrong but didn't know how to help, and kids. So many kids who just needed someone to see them. We set up support groups, emergency assistance programs, and a hotline. We trained volunteers to spot the signs of parentification. That's what the counselors called it. When children took on adult roles, we worked with family courts to intervene in cases where kids were being treated like servants in their own homes. Emma came to the first foundation event. She was nervous at first, surrounded by strangers. But when a little boy approached her, a 6-year-old, who'd been caring for his baby sister while his parents worked 3 jobs, she knelt down and talked to him like they were old friends. "It's hard, isn't it?" she said. "Taking care of someone when you're still little too." The boy nodded. "But you don't have to do it alone anymore. That's why we're here, to help." I watched her, and my chest felt tight. She was 9 now, still young, still healing, but also stronger than I'd ever imagined. She'd taken her pain and turned it into empathy, her burden into purpose. The foundation grew. 1 year in, we'd helped 300 families. 2 years in, we'd expanded to 5 states. The media picked up our story. The businessman, who'd given up his corner office to save his daughter, and turned that choice into a mission to save other kids too. I did interviews. I told Emma's story, with her permission. I talked about that phone call, about what I'd missed, about what I'd learned. And every time I spoke, I saw recognition in people's eyes. Parents who realized they needed to pay attention. Teachers who committed to watching for signs. Kids who understood they weren't alone. Emma started volunteering with me when she turned 11. She'd talk to the kids who came through the foundation, sharing her story, making them feel seen. She was incredible at it. Natural, kind, strong. One day, after an event, she said, "Daddy, do you think Mom would be proud of me?" We didn't talk about Victoria much. She'd completed her classes and therapy and had supervised visits now, but the relationship was strained. Emma went because the therapist said it was healthy to maintain connection, but there was a wall there that might never fully come down. "I think she should be," I said carefully. "You're an amazing person, Emma. Any parent would be lucky to have you." "Even you?" "Especially me." She hugged me, and I held her tight, remembering the 8-year-old who'd called me crying, who'd carried so much for so long. She was different now. We all were. 3 years after that phone call, Noah started kindergarten. He was a happy, rambunctious 5-year-old who loved dinosaurs and soccer, and making people laugh. He had no memory of the old house, the old life. To him, this was normal. A dad who was always there. A big sister who played with him instead of taking care of him. A home that felt safe. Emma was in 6th grade, thriving in school, playing soccer and taking piano lessons like she'd always wanted. She had friends who came over for sleepovers. She laughed easily. She was, finally, just a kid. One rainy afternoon, because it was always raining in my memories of the big moments, we sat together on the couch while Noah napped. Emma was doing homework, and I was reviewing grant applications for the foundation. The rain drummed steadily against the windows, a sound I'd once associated with dread but now found comforting. "Daddy?" Emma said, not looking up from her math worksheet. "Yeah? Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't called you that day?" I set down my papers and looked at her. She was still small for her age, but she didn't seem fragile anymore. She seemed solid, real. Here. Every day, I admitted. And it terrifies me. Me too. She finally looked at me. But I'm glad I called. Even though it was scary, I'm glad you came. So am I, sweetheart. Best phone call I ever got. She smiled and went back to her homework. I went back to my papers. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the streets clean. That evening, the three of us made dinner together. Emma helped Noah stir the pasta sauce while I cooked the noodles. We set the table together, ate together, cleaned up together. After dinner, we played a board game that Noah didn't really understand, but enjoyed anyway. Then baths and stories and tucking them into bed with kisses and I love yous. When the house was quiet, I went to my office and pulled out the journal I'd started keeping. I wrote about the day, about the grant applications, about Emma's question. And then I wrote the same thing I'd written at the end of every entry for the past 3 years. Thank you for that phone call. Thank you for giving me a chance to wake up. I won't waste it. Years passed. Emma grew into a teenager, then a young woman. Noah grew from a kindergartner to a bright, funny middle schooler. The foundation expanded, helped thousands of families, changed laws, saved lives. I never went back to my old job. I consulted occasionally, but my real work was the foundation, and my real life was my kids. Watching them grow, being there for every moment, the big ones and the small ones that turned out to be big in retrospect. Victoria remarried. She sent Christmas cards. The kids saw her sometimes, though the relationship never fully healed. Emma was cordial but distant. Noah barely remembered a time when she'd been there. They'd moved on. We all had. On Emma's 18th birthday, she came to me with an announcement. I've decided what I want to study in college. Yeah? What's that? Social work. I want to help families, like the foundation does, like you did for me. I had to look away for a moment, overwhelmed. You don't have to do that because of what happened. I'm not doing it because of what happened. I'm doing it because of what I learned. Pain doesn't have to be wasted, Daddy. It can become purpose. You taught me that. I hugged her tight, this strong, brilliant young woman, who'd once been a little girl with a too heavy burden. I'm so proud of you. I know. You tell me every day. Not enough. Never enough. At her high school graduation, Emma gave a speech. She talked about resilience and second chances, and how sometimes the hardest moments become the most important ones. She didn't mention her story specifically, but everyone who knew her understood what she was really saying. In the audience, I sat with Noah on one side and Margaret on the other. We cheered so loud when Emma's name was called that people stared. I didn't care. Let them stare. That was my daughter up there. My incredible, resilient, beautiful daughter who'd survived and thrived and was about to change the world. After the ceremony, as we took pictures on the football field, Emma said, "Hey Dad, remember when I asked if you'd ever leave again?" I remember. I haven't asked that in years, have I? No, you haven't. Good. Because I know you won't. You're here. You've always been here since that day. Since that phone call. Yeah. Best call I ever made. We both laughed, and Noah photobombed our picture, and the photographer had to retake it 3 times before we all stopped laughing long enough to smile properly. That night, after the parties and celebrations, after Noah went to bed and Emma left with friends, I stood in the living room of our house, not the old museum in Lincoln Park, but the smaller, warmer house we'd moved to years ago, and thought about everything that had led to this moment. One phone call. 4 words, "Daddy, my back hurts." Those words had destroyed my old life and built a new one. They'd cost me my marriage and my career trajectory and my illusions about being a good father, but they'd given me something infinitely more valuable. They'd given me my children, really given them to me, in a way I'd never had them before. I'd spent years chasing success, thinking it looked like money and power and corner offices, but real success looked like Emma graduating at the top of her class, confident and whole, It looked like Noah's easy laughter and unshakable security. It looked like thousands of kids helped through the foundation. It looked like being present, being there, being enough. The rain started again. Of course it did. I opened the back door and stood on the porch, letting the cool air wash over me. The rain fell steadily, drumming on the roof, running down the gutters, soaking into the earth. But this time, I didn't hear pain in the rain. I heard life, renewal, the sound of things being washed clean so they could start fresh. Thank you, I whispered to no one. And everyone. To Emma for making that call. To whatever force in the universe had made sure I answered. To second chances and wake-up calls and the grace we're given to change when we're finally ready to see. The rain kept falling. I stood there and let it, watching the water pool in the yard, knowing that tomorrow the grass would be greener, the flowers would bloom, life would continue, messy and beautiful and real, and I would be here for it, every single moment. Because Emma had taught me something that rainy Tuesday afternoon, 3 years ago, something I'd spent my whole life not understanding. Love isn't about being perfect. It's not about having all the answers or never making mistakes. Love is about showing up, being present, carrying the weight so your children don't have to. Love is answering the phone when your daughter calls, even in the middle of your most important meeting, and running to her no matter what it costs. Love is learning to braid hair badly and burn dinners and do laundry at midnight because your kid needs clean clothes for school. Love is saying, I'm sorry and I'll do better, and actually meaning it, actually doing better, every single day. Love is recognizing that the most important call of your life will never come from a boardroom or a business partner. It comes from a scared little voice on the phone, asking for help, trusting that you'll come. And when you get that call, you go. You drop everything and you go, because some things are worth more than money, or success, or anything else you thought mattered. Some things are worth everything. Inside the house, I heard Noah call out, "Dad, can you get me water?" "Coming, buddy," I called back. I took one more look at the rain, smiled, and went inside. To my kids, to my life, to every ordinary, extraordinary moment that made up a day, a week, a year, a lifetime of being there, of being Dad, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Every story carries within it an echo of our shared humanity. If this story has touched your heart, share it with someone special, leave us a comment about what you felt, and subscribe to join us for more soul-reaching stories, because every life tells a story that deserves to be heard. See you next time.